shoot, there we go. All right. I believe we are live, guys. We got Kyle Lintner in the house, man. Best dressed guy in freight. Other people have tried to claim it. Cassandra's got this thing going. Everybody that's on her podcast is like the best whatever in freight. Well, we got the best dressed in freight. So
thank you, TJ.
Yeah, so she could throw that on her post next time. But Tony's gonna be a minute or two late. He's probably helping put a pallet on right now. There he is, Bailey Darnell. Hey,
That's
Bailey,
right.
how are you?
I'm logged in as my daughter this time.
Hey, family man's a family man. That's how it works.
I never know what's going to pop up.
I hear you're there.
Whatever you got to do to get the job done, right?
And I just came sliding in sideways.
Okay, you're setting me up here. All right, here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna talk a little bit about freight market coming up. I'm gonna be honest with you guys. I feel like I've got a pulse on it. For me, I feel like it's these are the time of year when the shifts happen either way. How exaggerated they're going to be and whatnot, or that, that's why we got Kyle. I think Will's got a better pulse on it than what I used to do when I was living in it. Right, every single day it was like, I knew exactly what was going on. But so I'm looking to learn a little bit today too, and I'll bring some insight from experience. But Kyle, why don't you introduce yourself to people who don't know who you are, which I'm sure there's few after all of Tony's posts and things. But introduce yourself a little bit, and then kind of lead into what you think, what we're thinking right off the top.
Sure. I'm Kyle Lintner. I'm Tony Darnell's roommate. We do a lot of things together, particularly talk about freight. When we're not talking about freight in my spare time, I find myself on podcasts like this or doing research inside of freight, doing some freelance stuff right now. But prior to that, you guys have seen me in all the usual spots. I like to get into freight from a market-based perspective, which is where I think we find ourselves today and help solve some of the problems and some of the issues that we see inside of the freight market today.
Oh yeah, your brain, I guess you'd say, or knowledge or experience has become tenfold, just tenfold in value, even just over the last year, I'm sure, with all the uncertainties and people wanting to know what the hell is going on.
Yeah, it's a different approach. I think I'm not going to say I'm reinventing the wheel here, but I'm just bringing my past experience, which is 20 plus years inside of financial markets, to freight, which is where I think this is headed. It's a market like any other market. The same factors influence it, whether that's too much or too little supply or demand, where those things balance, the intersection is price. And that's what helps us locate and reallocate assets where they're needed most.
Mm-hmm. That's a good point. And I like, what's the phrase you always used we're forecasting or forecasting the future and not recapping the past. And you always say it with you got to say it with like a little bit of a moxie, as in like anybody else that's doing that, they're not me. Okay.
That's kind of where that came from. Right, yeah. I really like the shirt, Tony, by the way.
Thanks.
Anybody can sit there, and that's what most news shows or news formats are. It's, hey, this is what happened. Let's try and explain why. I never really had any interest in that. I thought it was more fun and more beneficial to everybody to at least try and figure out what's the next step, where are we currently at, and then what's going to be the next issue, or where's the next domino to fall, because that's a true benefit for everyone. If we can start to get ahead of the problem instead of just waiting for it to happen and then throw our hands up and say, oh, that sucked.
And it's funny, little things like that, though. I would listen to your stuff and I'd follow. And then, sometimes you just, you listen to it and you feel like it's just not another one, but like you usually would with any type of news or data updates. But as soon as you said that, I kind of looked into it and thought about it. And I was like, wait. And then just instantly in my head was like, that is way more valuable. Like even just like a phrase like that, like just even though it's common sense or people could really understand it if they just looked at it. But something like that.
I'm not here for the past. I'm here to provide action.
Oh yeah, just the way you say it too is like he's like, that guy's got a little bit of angst here. I don't know what's going on. But Tony,
word on the street tomorrow, 11 a.m. Or no, it's noon.
Noon Central.
Yeah.
Right.
Word on the street is.
He has a show that he copied off of us with called Hold My Sandwich. He does it at lunch. He's like the Mo Lotus Circle, you know what I mean, Will? And so,
man,
every chance I get,
every time
I'm gonna do it. I think you guys passed us. You said your numbers the other day. I was like, oh shit.
Yeah, I think we did, Circle.
Dude, and that day,
That's good work, Will. I'm
Thank
going to use that.
Yeah.
What?
Well, TJ, you're no Will.
Oh, you know what?
You're
Damn
close
it.
second. Kind of like golfing with Trey.
You know, whatever. Well, either way, it's all about culture, and
You're close
none of
second.
our cultures will be as good as Lippert's.
That's right.
Never.
But anyways, Tony, give me a little insight on what you're seeing from a well, you know, you're in a certain niche, I guess you'd say, market, but I feel like the what market you're in has been affected a lot by COVID and just in general with everything that's going on. So it is valuable to hear kind of what you're seeing from, you know, sales standpoints, projections, production, and all that stuff.
So, well, the way the recreational vehicle industry works, whether it's RVs, boats, motorhomes, towables, pushers, whatever, when they're manufacturing those, if they have an order for 100 and they can build 25 a day, they put in an order for 25 a day in product to keep them sustained at that pace. And then their orders are pushed out and pushed out. I think we're pushed out into 2022 already as far as orders. So there's just a backlog there. And it all depends on which niche of the market you're talking about too. I mean, Class C's are flying off the shelf. The towables are flying off the shelf. But you can drive through town and see lots full of these other ones. You know, there's some that are really selling, some that aren't selling as well. So they'll shift labor workforce from one plant to another. I don't know. The market is still strong. Q3, Q4 is still projected to be up even more. We're gearing up for growth. We're anticipating a higher Q4 than Q3, and Q3 is off to a pretty good start. Q1 was crazy. Q2, I don't think was quite what Q1 was, but most of that was supply chain stuff. I mean, you just can't get enough parts in time, in-house, on time to plan and build. There's always material shortages somewhere. And, as long as that's going on, the market's going to stay up. My opinion. That's what I'm saying.
What's interesting as you talk about the snarl in your supply chain is that it's almost like COVID was the perfect storm for it to throw everything off, right? Because the same thing that you need is what I need, just in a different market, right? I need driver capacity. If I need to move intermodal, I need containers, right? I need things to free up. And currently, everyone needs the same thing. And so you've got every single facet of the supply chain being thrown out of whack with no real end in sight. And it's interesting to see how each part bumps up against each other. Obviously, we all knew that, but never as much or as pronounced as the last, 15 months.
Hey, I need radios. My team is growing. I'm giving them a radio because we have a huge campus and 2 different buildings and a giant shipyard between them. And I ordered radios. Well, my guy that orders the radios came back to me and I was like, dude, where's my radios? They're not here. I need them now. Our team's already here. Where are these radios? He goes, they're back ordered. It's the same chip that they can't put in the Ford pickup.
This progressive culture at Lippert, we're all we're all ahead of everybody. And you're using radios
in the yard.
Applebee's was able to contact their hosts up at the front door with earpieces, and that was like 10 years ago. That was before the 2 for $20, and that's a great date, Will.
Listen, my pager is gone off all day long.
Yeah, really. Fax me. I still don't know how. I got embarrassed the other day. Somebody said something. People come to me like, "Hey, TJ, will you help me do this?" Or, I take pride in knowing how to do all that stuff, and they're like, "Will you help me with this fax?" I'm like, "Absolutely not. I have no idea how it works. It beeps or something."
We're still on the cutting edge, man. I'm getting some scan guns that are HD cameras and phone tech. That's way over my head. I'm still trying to program my VCR. Leave me be, man.
Okay. Hey, but what size of RVs are selling, Tony? Because I was talking with somebody the other day, and they talked about with all this, like all the economic stimulus that they're handing out for free money, and all the ways that they approached it wrong, or approached it, and all that stuff like that. Like that set amount. They were talking about, like, they were looking at like the commodities that people buy with that, and it's either like something they could buy straight up with it, or something that's big enough that they could use it as a down payment on. And a lot of people were able to fix their credit with that amount, because some of people, some people don't realize they're $3,000 away from fixing their credit if they really wanted to. But so are you seeing like a difference in that? Because I know the used camper sales are way up.
Yeah, it's honestly from what I've seen, and I'm no market expert. We're really just supplying. I have no idea what the true market is doing because I'm worried about what I'm doing. And from what I can tell, they're all flying off the shelf. But there's people that are way better qualified to answer that than me, and I just don't have the knowledge.
And one other question: when we golfed with Trey Gray, sorry, we'll get to you over there, Kyle.
Oh no, it's just I love the pace with Tony you take.
But yeah, he slows me down a little bit, doesn't he? When me and you golfed with Trey and Pete up there in Middlebury, okay, on the way back there on 20, it's unbelievable. You guys would not believe this. There is a lot, like you're going through Amish country. I mean, like as you're driving, you've got like all these semis going, and then like Amish guys on their bikes on the side of the road, like about to fall over, and so, but then there's like this field, and then there's like this like a gate. It's like all gated, this whole field. And they turn it into all rock lot, and it's there. I'm telling you, there's probably I don't say 6,000, probably a couple thousand Amazon Sprinter van, like small straight trucks. Some of them are the parcel looking trucks, and then some of them are actual like box trucks. All of them just lined up. I mean, like from the road, you can just see it. They just go all the way out in the field, just lined up.
You know what they're waiting
I
on?
was thinking like those were obviously because of the production that's done up in the Elkhart, area with RVs and recreational vehicles. How much did the production that they did there take away from what you were able to do? I mean, I know you guys didn't, but have you heard anything on that? Because that had to take some time.
Those are completely separate factories and manufacturing lines that are running those delivery vans. It's a whole separate company, and they're also based.
Is that what they usually make?
Yes. So like the majority of those Amazon vans, bread trucks, your parcel delivery, a lot of that. We used to have a mail truck facility here locally too. There are all of those new USPS trucks that went out, the right-hand drive. That's a Australian version Ford Explorer chassis. Just I don't even know if they still make those, but the company that makes those is in Bristol, which is between Elkhart and Middlebury.
Which I didn't know, because I know that like there's some companies that like adjusted what they did to help out during like when there were big booms. I didn't know if they changed from making RVs to making those, but
so like for instance, Forest River makes a Class A, a Class C, a fifth wheel, a bumper pull, and a boat. But they also make an Amazon type delivery vehicle out of a Sprinter van.
Yep. Okay.
It's just one of the production lines.
Yeah, but it got me thinking too, because like it's really cool, and Will, you know this probably. I mean, all four of you guys do, but you do sometimes get a read on the market, or like just events or things that are happening ahead of time because of the supply chain. So like before Amazon may have announced it, or I don't know if they did or not, but like before they made the big deal about how they're going to do their own deliveries, right? That that was going to take business away from USPS and all this big thing. We already had a huge project running Sprinter vans out of Mexico, right? And they tell it, like you can talk to that person, they're like, oh, those are for Amazon. Like what? And you start to kind of learn, and then so there's certain things, like especially when you're moving freight, that you learn like ahead of time, like before they hit. And if you're working for a certain company, I know right now there's shortages in like certain areas, and I knew that was going to be the case, right? And then now I hear people talk about it, just from what I've heard from my customers. And so, well, how much of that do you utilize? Pulling from the day-to-day customer conversation, do you utilize to kind of help predict, on top of just pure data?
So I think a lot of it comes down to the conversations you're having with the carriers that you use on a daily basis. So a lot of the intel you'll be able to get that's more than just looking at the lane level data will be, okay, where are they going when they're not hauling for me? Or what are they getting paid out of a particular area? Maybe I don't have a lot of freight there, right? And it helps you get a feel or a pulse on where the market's moving to, because you think about the amount of freight we might move versus the access that they have to whoever else they work with. You're going to get visibility, or at least hear the chatter. Now, sometimes it's anecdotal, but you can get a good feel and say, okay, well, looks like Georgia's dead. Why? Because, every single one of our outbound Georgia carriers is no longer wanting to go back there for their backhauls, right? They don't need to go to that location, and you don't necessarily have to have the freight there, but you do need to be tuned in with the partners you work with. That helps a ton. shippers help a lot too. You know, you look at some of the large meat producers that, you know, most of us work with. You can get a feel for where they're pulling supply from. Same thing with produce, right? Certain areas die down. You do have to be, you know, keep your ear to the ground and whatnot. Wow, look at all those vans. Look at that. But you know, that's something that I think is important as you're just trying to get an idea of what's going to happen, because a lot of times you're looking at data that is now not helpful in the moment, right? It's reporting from days in the past, but you want to get a feel for what's going to happen in the next 7 or 14. So having that info with someone that's, you know, at the ground level is super important.
Will, I think that's a really, really, really good point, and one that's often overlooked, because for the most part, and you mentioned it, the same shippers that everybody knows, they tend to be larger, they tend to be public, they tend to have anecdotes out in the media that you can read. Hey, we're having an issue with this. Plus, I like to get ahead of it. They want their shareholders to know, they want their customers to know there's going to be some problems. But we don't ever get to hear about it from the carriers, especially because most carriers are not public. They're smaller, right? And then you get to talk to them, and you talk to the people who know all of the fleet, and you hear what's going on with them. They're the ones that tell you, look, I don't like to go into here anymore. Or I know this is a one-off, but very early into COVID, before anything's published about all the problems out west, I had a fairly large carrier tell me, I have to go to Dallas. I don't like doing it. I'll take whatever I can get just to get out to LA, because I get to all points east for whatever rate I choose. Okay, you take a mental note of that then. You know, and this is the same thing you do with any of the other conversations. You take a mental note, see if the guy's actually telling you the truth, because you have to verify it once the rates come true. And then you know who's telling you the truth and who's blowing smoke up, you know what. But it's like, then you said you can start to filter through this stuff, and where do we want to concentrate based off what we know. You mentioned something like Georgia, nobody wants to go back to it. Hey, perfect. That's an area to avoid until enough time has passed and everyone has avoided it, and then we all know what comes next. Then that's a problem again. You already have the relationships established with the right people, and you can route them into that area in and out as they please at a more favorable rate. So I completely agree, and I can't stand when people just want to focus on what the shippers are doing. The great unknown in this industry are the carriers. It seems like nobody wants to put the work in to try and figure out what they're up to.
You know, it's funny. I have a recent customer land, you know, a very large opportunity that I've been working on for a while with one of our reps. And the real reason why we got the opportunity was because of carrier level intel. Like talking to the carriers that they were doing something else for a different customer, had a really good relationship with them. It said, this is who you need to talk to if you want this business. Now, we're not talking market. We're just talking like using resources to advance what you're working on. And they're at the dock. They're getting the BOLs, right? They're having these conversations. They know what are good areas or what are bad areas. The same thing I think about the crazy March that we had when everything froze over. I have a really good friend that runs a fleet out of Dallas. They've got thousands of trucks. I felt very prepared to be able to speak to the team and say, look, carriers are not going over the road right now because drivers have made enough money where they feel safe that they're going to chill because it's unsafe right now. They're not concerned about the money they're not going to make. And as a result of that, everything will be more expensive. And people are like, oh, no, it'll be okay. I'm like, no. You understand? This guy has thousands of trucks and all of them are like, we're not leaving the home. So like in a week, do you understand how much that backs up everything that you're working on? And like literally a week later, it was all hell broke loose.
Wow. Imagine what happens when you act like a real freight broker and you talk to both the carrier and the shipper and do some good.
And just using your resources, like, so we have an asset division. So like, you know, when I was looking at brokerage, when COVID first went down, it was like, I knew that we actually had drivers that weren't going to go out because they put in for, you know, those loans at the beginning, right? You know, and they were getting money, right? And so that you had that, right, that hurt capacity. I also knew that a lot of our dedicated automotive business was shut down, right? And I know for a fact that's about 600,000 trucks right there, based on that stuff. Okay, so you start talking now. Where did our drivers go? Where did we send them? Right, because we got the heads up ahead of time, right? The drivers or the carriers that are on that dedicated business were told, hey, this, and this, right? So as a broker, if you're relying on that, if you're used to a lack of capacity, I say not lack of capacity, but maybe a normal capacity. Now all of a sudden there's 600,000 trucks that flood the market, right? And now all of a sudden the rates go down to $1 a mile. Everybody's bitching because there were certain people that weren't ready for it, right? Certain carriers at least, and there's way more trucks than freight. But this is before everybody got back to work and stuff. So you got the automotive business, you got 600,000 trucks in the Midwest, but the people that knew what they were doing, where were they going? Right? Where were they going? I don't know how many carriers I knew, and I started looking to it immediately. Right? So I'm on the asset division worrying about having a plan for my trucks, but I'm also saying, where's everybody else going? Right? And looked into it, boom. I knew within a day that 10 of the top carriers that even helped us in the automotive industry were heading down to Louisiana, right? Because Port Island down there was way backed up, right? They were going to go down there and figure it out, sit, whatever they had to do. And they were making enough money pulling stuff out of the port to make up rather than sitting there and waiting for $1.20 a mile, in the same area and not going anywhere. So, talking to the drivers, especially like you said, what are they doing? Why are they staying at home? I knew I had owner apps that were like, hey, listen, I'm making enough money now that I could finally, I'm going to take a week or so to get finish my barn that I've been wanting to build, as we got busier, during COVID, they ran so freaking hard, right? Because they had to, they weren't making any money, right? There was a couple of accounts that kept us alive really with the assets, and a lot of them kind of left because it was who had what that was moving at that time. Then once everything started booming, it was, hey, I'm making enough now where, like I said, I'm going to finish my barn here. I'm going to take my wife on vacation for the first time in a while. Or I ran my truck so freaking hard during COVID that I didn't take care of it because I didn't have the money to, and now it's breaking down. We ran into that quite a bit, right? The maintenance bubble, right? And then also now because everything's so busy, I can't get parts, right? So I'm ordering my parts off eBay, right? Or I got a 2-week wait to get into my mechanic, and I'm making enough money that I can wait that 2 weeks instead of run. So, before it was, hey, I'm going to try and get into a different truck, or I'm going to figure this out. And it just became, that's a great point though. Talking to carriers, talking to drivers gives you such an advantage. It's really using all your resources, drivers, carriers, shippers. If you're lucky enough to have a Tony Darnell, or if you're lucky enough to be his roommate, you pick that guy's brain and you can learn a little bit about what's going on up in the Middlebury area. But, you always got people you're talking to. I got a guy that does ocean freight. His company, he owns a mine in Morocco, right? Literally brings the salt over, and was giving me some insights on different things. And so I pick his brain too, like on going into COVID, before COVID even hit really, he was telling me about how remember Tony used to talk about the Illinois River was shutting down, and he was like, listen, Illinois River's going to shut out because he had to be way ahead of the game on where his vessels were going. And he went a broker, just like literally he moved his freight, his salt. And he's like, because they're fixing the locks, right? Like for the first time in like 20 years, they had to go in and maintenance or fix the locks. And so coming up the Mississippi, anything coming up the Mississippi to break off the Illinois to go to Chicago, now was either going to go intermodal or truckload right out of Louisiana, or it was going to break off in Ohio, and you were going to see high rates or high volumes out of St. Louis, Louisville, Cincinnati, or wherever else they would end up taking it to try to get close enough to be able to run it at a cheaper truck rate or intermodal rate. And so I started looking at that, and sure enough, it was unbelievable. I saw that stuff, and I would talk to customers in the area, and they said the same thing. So
I'll tell you,
knowing who to talk to and just figuring it out by just talking to anybody.
If you're an economics nerd or data driven at all, and you want to see an economic indicator, watch the economy in the Elkhart County, Indiana area. As Elkhart goes, so goes the nation 6 months from now. So when we're booming, the economy will stay strong. When we start to dip, I'd start watching.
How about the Tony index?
Yeah, like what's this index we need to be looking at, Tony? I'm not.
It's called the meth. It's called the meth allocation.
So that follows closely.
The amount of teeth starts going down in Elkhart. We've got an issue.
When you watch the economic. Watch the economic numbers in Elkhart, watch the unemployment numbers in Elkhart, watch what's going on in Elkhart as far as whatever public information you can find on the Elkhart, Indiana area, and you will see what's coming, because the majority. Did I freeze up?
Yeah, you're back. How about how the internet connection in Elkhart is? Does that have anything to do with anything?
Well, I'm not in Elkhart. I'm in the South Bend internet market, which stinks.
You're good now.
So, because our manufacturing base is mostly recreational vehicle and commercial vehicle stuff, all of those are leading economic indicators. So when we're down, it's going to be down everywhere else 6 months from now. People stop buying campers before they stop buying groceries.
Extracurricular, yep. Yeah, that makes sense. I like that.
Good point.
Hey, you know
Remember
what you gotta
08?
do, Tony?
Remember
Well, I
08
get
when the
on.
recession happened? Obama came here.
Yeah,
Is he your roommate too?
No,
you get with Booty Judge and hang out, or what did you guys do?
no idea. I
Hey,
wasn't
you know
there.
what you gotta do? You gotta start. So for Elkhart information, you and Kyle team up, E ratio, right? Team up, Elkhart, Mishawaka area. It's all one city anymore.
No.
And you guys give you give the Elkhart County economic update, and people can base all their stuff off of that. But it is true. I mean, really, if you think about it.
The economic footprint in Elkhart is so big in the RV and the recreational vehicles that it is really a leading economic indicator for the entire country.
I always talk to my buddies that work at right here in DeKalb County, so Northeast Indiana. But what are we? 2 counties over, 3 counties over?
Yeah, some 2 or 3.
So a ton of buddies work at like New Millennium, SDI, Nucor, building, steel, right? So like Nucor Building Systems, whether it's rolled steel, whatever it is. So whether they're providing, flat steel flattened rolls, or whatever for truck beds, or whether there's a lot of it really is rigging I-beams and stuff for buildings. And so, if companies aren't
It's called structural steel, Steve.
right. So if there's not new structures going up, if there's not additions going on, they'll tell you, because those dudes are paid off bonus. They make $15 an hour, but they make 120 grand a year because they go in at 4 a.m. to get ready, because whatever they put out, they're paid on a bonus, that week. And so I'll get a good kind of idea from them too on what things are going. They'll tell you too. They'll be like, hey, we were just told that this, and this. Like they're pretty informed on, like, the workers are, even like what projects they're working on, or what they're being told that they're going to see in the future. Plus, I think they get profit sharing too. So I'm sure that's probably.
Class A truck sales are a leading economic indicator.
What is it?
Said truck sales.
Truck sales?
Yeah. Kyle, I have a question for you. I think this is important because, as we kind of go back and forth about understanding the market and how you need to pivot and things of that nature, what do you think people are neglecting to pay attention to that would be helpful? So we're in the midst of Q3 right now, going to shift to Q4. People are probably turning a blind eye to something that could help them understand how to manage, their freight volumes or pricing and whatnot a little bit more effectively.
I hate to say a lot of things, but I think a lot of things. And what I mean by that is we're still hearing everyone say reefer's going to stop any day now, right? Reefer's going to end. No, everyone is still shocked we're into August and people are paying what they're paying for reefer prices. That's not going to stop, simply because just taking it off the national averages right now, you've got spot 23 cents over contract. And that's the average. And the old adage about averages holds true. You put your head in the oven and your feet in the freezer, on average, you're doing okay, but the extremes are going to kill you. So that means if that's 23 cents on average, and given what we know about freight right now, how average length of haul is increasing, it's fairly safe to assume that the majority of those rates that are above average are the longer hauls, which means we're pushing the capacity that's needed further away from the location where it's needed. It's going to take longer for it to get back there. It almost becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy in this vicious circle that just continues on that. And I don't think that's limited to just reefer. Everyone, it feels like every new month we have another person saying which quarter is going to be the cliff in freight, right? And when this first started a year ago, it was, we just need to get past the 4th of July, right? Once we get into August, things are going to die down again. We'll have a little blip for Christmas and we're gone. We saw July, August, September with higher rates than we saw in June of last year. Okay, we just need to get through Christmas. February is going to be dead just like it always is. Okay, little drop in February. We get one problem in one state. Granted, it's a very large state, Texas. Whole nation's thrown off. All right, just need to get through produce season, get through June 30 again. Freight's going to die down, right? Nope, upticks in July. It's a resistance from the shippers to go ahead and put up a high number. You have to put the contract rates above the spot rates, or you're never going to be able to secure capacity, because there just isn't enough capacity. There's too many goods moving around for too few trucks. And what's exacerbating all of this is what we've been talking about for the past 10 or 15 minutes. Whatever you're producing, you don't have all of the goods or the components that you need to go into it, because everything stopped a year ago, but the true demand for anything didn't really stop. People just hit pause on when they chose to buy it. Then when we all came back online and things opened up, all of that pent up demand was released, but the production of those things was not completed. So we're still trying to play catch up. It almost feels like we're in the situation right now. If we could just hit pause, or we could have this be two halves, like if it was a football game, we just got to halftime. All right, everybody catch your breath, get the trucks where they're needed absolutely most. Let's stop with the long hauls. Let's bring back some more intermodal volume. That's the other issue.
Yeah.
Everybody needs everything right now.
Yeah.
I can't wait 2 weeks for it to get here intermodal. I need a team. It's got to be here in 3 days. Okay. Well, you want Transcon? 13 grand. Sure. Can't take the risk for my customers not buying my product. I'll pay it. All right. Well, what is that going to do to any available capacity? They're going to search out those things. When now we have the lower paying routes on the shorter length of hauls, lose out to that kind of stuff. And then that creates its own issue in the other areas. The Midwest, and particularly if we look at the East Coast, nobody wants to run the stuff on the East because it's short length of haul, shorter paying stuff. Everybody just wants to get out to the West Coast and run 1,500 miles at $3 a mile, right? Okay. Well,
But the intermodals, that's so if you follow that too, right? Yeah, I follow different markets too, because if intermodal has no capacity, the reason people even use one of the reasons companies use intermodal is because it's a lot cheaper to run from Philadelphia to California on the train, right? And so now when they don't have capacity, now it's not that they need a team because it's got to get there. It's that's all they can do is pay for a team, or whoever ends up who is in that lane that runs it. The cool part is, as a broker, you don't have to worry about people putting it on rail, do you? They used to rail our shipments, capacity. But that's something you look at, right? So you're like saying, all right, now there's a lot more, those longer hauls are paying more because those are usually intermodal lanes. I've had customers tell me, we always put this on train. Yeah. We can't. We literally can't do it. We need a truck. Help us out. Don't gouge us, but well, hey, listen, whatever the carrier, he knows he's going to get paid, and I remember putting out a post, still one of my favorite posts, because I make a lot of predictions and I'm not always right. You hear about the ones I am though, but it was like right when COVID hit and I started talking about drop trailer accounts. I'm like, I was talking about prospecting. Like, if you want to bring value to a customer and you have trailers, start offering them now. If you want to land some customer or you want to bring some value, sell drop trailers, right? If you have them, it's going to be, whether you rent them or whatever it is, start renting them now, because they're producing, and a lot of who they're producing, their customers are not open, right? There was inventory that was like being like written off and put up, and that they're out of warehousing, right? Because a lot of the warehousing is being used for hand sanitizer and all this other shit on top of stuff that's being produced that can't be sold. And so there were shippers that were renting 30, 40 trailers at a time for storage. And so if you had trailers, it was a hot commodity. And I called it, and it went, and sure enough, it happened. But it was just kind of looking at those things. Now, the one thing that got me off guard that really affected this that I didn't see was the labor shortage. That's one thing that's really affected it. I mean, I know I've got 2 or 3 customers that are paying huge rates because they can't get people unloaded in time. And they know that nobody wants to run that lane because they're going to have to pay a lot, because they know at the receiver, they can't get you unloaded. They'll have one forklift driver. And the amount of claims, I was talking to my neighbor who's a big transportation guy for supply chain. He said the amount of claims they've seen is huge, because all the forklift drivers they used to have never came back to work because they were making more at home. And now they got these like inexperienced people poking holes in trailers and, not shrink wrapping or stacking things correctly. And I did not see that coming. And that's really still affecting us now. I mean, they just can't get enough people to work. We had customers that would be open 24, third shift, we go in, get loaded. They're only going to be able to load us during first shift. That's a big thing.
Similar stories I've heard and completely agree. Never thought that was going to be an issue. And then you hear from multiple shippers and receivers, and they say, I can't get enough people, or I can't get qualified people. My detention times are swelling. And then it's like you say, it gets through the carrier network, and they say, I'm not doing that. I'm not waiting 4 hours to get loaded and 4 hours to get unloaded. If I'm going to do that, my rate's now up here.
Yep.
Okay. Well, then that filters through the network as well. And if everyone's going to pay more for it, everyone else has to pay more for it. You can't undercut anyone. These guys are going to take a lower price to lose out on hours of service. And the other thing I'll say on that is it gets doubly affected. I had one enormous retailer tell me that they had a kink in their supply chain so bad that they missed spring season for a lot of their goods. When that stuff showed up, it couldn't get routed the typical routes that they had. They needed to send it to different warehouses. Now you're messing up the routing guide, which gets into, even if you're in the contract, even if your rates are good, you're not delivering on your volume fulfillments or on the days when you don't promise it. That's going to be an issue for your service provider. He doesn't just run your lane. He runs 2 or 3 a week.
Yep.
So now he's going to have to cancel on you, not because it was a price, not because he doesn't want a service, but you're telling him, oh yeah, that those 5 loads that were here on Tuesday are actually going to be 1 load. It's on Thursday and it's going to a different destination. All right, well, I have to change my price.
He's already got a backhaul lined up.
Yeah.
He's got to
exactly
or cancel on it.
It's all these little things we never thought about, but the supply chain works great when there are no problems. When there's one little small, it really is a chain. It starts to get diverted in one direction, then goes the next. And if we can't maintain tension throughout all of it, all the wheels come off.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you really think about it. I mean, a snowstorm or a hurricane, like, throws it into whack, and that's one little region. And you know, a global pandemic in which China's affected, and Africa's affected, and all these places where things are going and coming, and like on top of America, obviously. I don't know if Canada was really affected. They don't ever complain. They're really polite, but
I think they're still shut down.
Everybody was pretty much affected, right? So that I didn't think of it that way either. I mean, really, the Southeast gets affected. If there's a whole supply chain off in America, the whole world gets affected.
So check this out. I was reading an article on Transport Topics the other day, and I just pulled it up because
was it on us being in the top 40?
Absolutely not. But if you were, I appreciate that. You're the man. Circle to the moon. So it was about Maersk upping their profit guidance by $5 billion.
What is it? Mayor's doing what?
They are publicly telling their shareholders that they're upping their profit guidance $5 billion because of how
profit guidance
crazy. So they're saying they're going to make $5 billion more than they anticipated. They anticipated 13 to 15 billion, and now they're like, I'll probably be like 18 to 19.5 billion because of how out of whack the supply chain is and what they can charge for containers or space and whatnot. And so you think about what is not, it's not truly an auxiliary area of freight, but for most of us, right, we're doing over the road or LTL, all these different, but this is the first part, right, of whatever is coming across to get to us. And the largest provider of ocean and container services saying that, hey, we'll make $5 billion more than we thought.
I read that article the other day too, Will. That's awesome that you brought that up. I wished I had a flashback into a career change. I wanted to be the guy that wrote that warning.
Yeah.
Dear stock shareholders, I'm sorry to inform you. What a great letter to write, man.
Yeah. But like that's a part of what's going on right now, and there's no end in sight. Like I don't know what is going to allow us to go back to whatever we thought was normal before this, because there's no end in sight.
Right. So you have that. You get the Port of LA commissioner saying we're screwed until Q1 2022. Why does anybody think this is just going to stop anytime soon? Not to mention, we're getting 25,000 Class 8 truck orders a month. Who knows how much of that's replacement rate? They can't even get the parts they need to finish those. That's another 9 months when they actually get here. Unless demand absolutely falls off a cliff, which it won't, and there's a certain level of consumption that we all have. There's still so many problems out there that we're not going to be able to solve them at any point in time until we have a massive overcapacity inside of the market. And because the supply chain is so screwed, we can't get those trucks built to bring about that excess capacity.
And how much does it affect, like, how do you come back? How long does it take to come back from, like, an article I read the other day where somebody was paid $36,000 for a container from China?
Yeah, that's the new thing.
Right now, container shipping, like the rates are they're $20,000 above $20,000 per 40-foot box. Is that true?
Yeah, that's why Maersk is coming out with an extra $5 billion.
Unbelievable.
Have you seen?
So here, all right, and there are shippers that are saying, okay, it is what it is. If I want to have Christmas goods, I got to pay it, right? Yep. So what's going to happen when those all show up here? They're going to start nickel and diming guys for the over the road portion of it. Hey, that $3,000 load is now $5,000. All right, yeah. Bill me.
Consumers are going to see it. I mean, they're going to see the hike not only on because of the supply chain, right? And what they're paying, but also the fact that, Wendy's is offering 15 to 20 bucks an hour right now to hire anybody. You know what I mean? So
And it
hey,
still takes a half an hour to get through the line.
you like eating boogers, Tony. You better you better save up, because that's going to be a delicacy.
So here's something that's interesting, and it is related to the market, but tangentially. So like, let's say I am, and I read this the other day, it kind of blew my mind. I'm like a small pool supplier in Georgia, right? And I like buy my pool liners from someplace, and they come in on a ship. And I don't have the buying power that like a Walmart does to like divert my containers to go somewhere else, or maybe it took so long for me to get it. It's not like pool season in my location anymore. So like, what do I do with this stuff that's now months delayed that I can't sell it? Because the only way someone's going to buy is unless it's at a deep discount. And the only people that have enough buying power to be able to change what's going on are like the Walmarts and the Amazons of the world. Oh, I can't sell it in Cincinnati. Okay, send it to Georgia. Like, we can handle it there. It's crazy to think about how much of that, and a lot of it has to do with cost. Because if you're a small provider, like I can't pay $20,000 for a container. I guess I'm just not getting these goods.
Yeah, out of business.
Like, what am I going to do?
It's part of the natural selection of the Darwinism of business. Is those companies that can't absorb the price increases or can't push that price increase down to the consumer, they end up going extinct, and we get left with the local store that we all love going to is gone, and it's now an Amazon drop off.
Or it's where your sales guy is going to play, right? Because now, as a sales guy, I'd be out there going, hey, listen, I got this product. It's a pool. We don't even use liners. It's a non-liner pool. You've never seen anything like it. You've seen anything else on the market? Listen, talk to me here. I can get you 10% off non-liner pool. But no. One thing I want to touch on, and Kyle, because you know a little bit about this. What and this could affect, obviously, you mentioned it earlier, reefers, but what are you seeing? Obviously, we've seen a spike in fuel, right? What are you from the fuel? Like, what are your predictions or forecasts when it comes to fuel prices? I guess
higher for longer.
Yeah,
I wouldn't expect anything crazy either direction. It seems to be somewhat of a level of homeostasis around here. Everyone's talking about $100 oil, but realistically, that's not going to happen. Whether we want to make this push towards EVs or not, and there are domestic rig production that's there. They're just not flowing at the same rate. There's also prohibitive exploration CapEx numbers that no one wants to commit the money to new wells if we're going to go green. So we're not going to have an abundance of oil that comes along, but how long can we expect foreign nations to hold down their supply if we're going to keep ratcheting up the price? The answer is you can't, but that isn't a reason for it to go lower. So there are headwinds and tailwinds at this. Unfortunately, I think where we are is where we stay. It's unfortunate. It's almost like a hidden tax when you get to these astronomical line hauls that you throw fuel on top. But until we have an alternative, until EVs are really here, and even when they are here, what are we going to get out of dray and local runs? You're not getting long hauls.
Is that going to help keep the reefer rates up too because of fuel?
100%.
Unload times, right? Load times and unload times.
Yes. Not to mention that you're running. Look at what's going on right now with the temps. We even have, that's part of the reason reefer's where it's at. Everything out west is 100 degrees, every single state. So loads that might not necessarily have gone reefer, candy, gum, things like that, they have to go temp control now. They're going to melt, literally. Yeah. So now you're trying to pull some excess capacity from a market that doesn't really have it. And to your point, yeah, that's even more fuel consumption, which is just going to push up the price on that load. If you're getting 6-7 miles a gallon on your dry, you're getting 3 or 4 on your reefer if you're lucky. Mm-hmm. Especially considering that it's, I don't even know anymore. Is it 110 still in Arizona? Crank that bad boy up, man.
Yeah, and because the I don't know. I mean, I know the fuel plays a big role. You used to touch on that too, because it is important. I mean, things that whether, I mean, just look. I think what happens is, like in the when something like this happens, those things used to happen in the past. It's just like once you get yourself to that vulnerable, like once the supply chain goes that vulnerable, it just those little things make way bigger ripples.
Yep.
those little
That's
things
what I was gonna
they were happening anyways. You know what I mean? But the
It's more
ripples they make
palatable
now,
when the load was $2,000 and the fuel was 200. Now you're paying 4,000 and the
Yep.
fuel's another 400 on top of it.
Yeah.
And we don't even need to go down the rabbit hole of hidden profit centers when it comes to fuel
Right.
surcharges, but those same games also get exacerbated when we get to fuel rates like we see right now.
and fuel's huge. You're like, hey, all those protesters in South Dakota, Tony, on the pipeline, they may be reconsidering once they go to fill up. Am I wrong?
No,
The natives? No? Okay.
the natives
All right.
protesters. Good grief.
I don't know what they're feeling. I don't know how bought in they were to it, how passionate they really were. You know, you get to the fuel pump, man, you look at it, hey, that changes your whole attitude. I mean, I'll tell you that.
Wasn't the last time we had $100 oil? We were at $3 a gallon. Wait,
So $100 oil, given current crush margins or crack margins, I'm sorry, different commodity, is in the area of 410 to 420 on your average diesel.
ouch.
Yeah.
I read an article a couple of weeks ago. I think we may have even talked about it here at one point, but the vessels, the companies that are running these ocean going vessels are buying ships or pulling ships out of retirement that they were parking to dismantle or salvage and selling them for, you know, tens of millions of dollars in profit over what they paid for them 10 years ago. Just the demand is so high. So even the vessels, you know, they're selling off their scrap fleet.
Everything. It goes back to my earlier point. Everything got put on hold, but that demand didn't. And then when we came back online, everyone is in a rush to fulfill what they needed.
And you know, we've seen the markets going up and down, but I don't know if I've ever seen this high, this long, with
Right.
no end in sight.
Right.
There is no end in sight. You can buy a truck right now. You can order a truck, and it's going to be 6-8 months before you get delivery of it, if you get delivery of it in that time.
So here's the thing that's most interesting to me. I've spent most of my career focusing on full truckload, dry van, and refrigerated freight, right? And so for the most part, it hasn't been massively impacted by what's going on in LTL or e-commerce, or, you know, yeah, if customers want to convert things from over the road to intermodal, then you have to pivot. So, you know, there's one piece there, but like the market has been fairly insulated. If you're moving full truckload freight, you move full truckload freight, right? Well, now, if I'm a carrier based out of Chicago, hypothetically, and maybe I used to run over the road, and I can do drayage runs and make as much money as I would have made to do what I was doing back in the day, and my drivers would be away from home, I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm going to pay what pays me the most money and keeps my drivers on my fleet. And so that has completely thrown everything out of whack, because like Kyle said earlier, like everything has a need, and it all needs the same thing, right? We need drivers, we need capacity, we need the availability of, you know, containers. It's just everything has a need, and we're all pulling, you know, like they say, robbing Peter to pay Paul, right? You pull a driver from this, put them on that. Okay, well, now there's an imbalance here. It's almost never ending at this point.
Right. You hit on it right there. The driver's the key to all of that. 2 months ago, flatbed had the highest average rate per mile. Who would have thought that ever? But it's the same problem. If you can't seat the trucks, and it's not even a big number, but we are so short on capacity that we need help everywhere. And if it's like whack-a-mole, whichever one's going to pop up, people are just going to run to it. So if we think about all these years past where there were freight bull markets, there's a problem. It's somewhat localized. Maybe it spreads to the region, but capacity shows up. You know, price is an advertising mechanism. Word gets out. Trucks show up. Now it's like one area will pop up. Sure, fine. The next day, the next neighboring area pops up, and you just keep shifting these assets all around the country, but nothing ever really gets cold. Everything stays some variation of hot to boiling, right? Correct. We just don't have enough trucks. We don't have enough drivers. We don't have enough anything. Yet the demand is still stable in there.
What blows my mind, I take a look. I used to use New Jersey, you know, any major city in New Jersey back to Chicago as the barometer, right? I'm like, that's $1 a mile. I don't care what you say. I don't care if I got to cover it at 4 p.m., if I cover it at 9 a.m. It doesn't matter. It's $1 a mile. It's $2 a mile plus right now. And that is on top of what carriers are getting paid outbound from the Midwest. You cannot buy a truck from the East Coast to the Midwest for less than $2 a mile. It does not exist. Yep. And those are like the hallmarks of what you used to be able to say, that's, you know, let me see where the market's at, right? Gone.
Yeah. I remember I wrote a research piece about that right before the Texas freeze. because rates were starting to soften. But I said, hold on. And everyone wanted to throw in the towel. I said, wait a minute. Backhaul lanes are going up in price. This thing isn't getting cold because we're now setting the bar this much higher. Any sort of a problem is just going to create a nationwide problem. And it's not like I'm some sort of a prophet, but if you look at, like you're saying, if a dollar backhaul lane is now $1.80 or $2 a mile, what does that do to all the head hauls?
Correct.
They're not going to stay at the same $2.50 to $3. There's a certain elasticity in all of this, and when one area gets pulled and stretched, the next area is going to get pulled and stretched. Nothing is isolated inside of the supply chain.
This is why freight is so fun to watch, because the assets
true.
literally move.
Yeah. And makes you want to pull your hair out at the same time.
You
I've
can't
never,
really
I've
predict.
never been fascinated and more frustrated by an industry at the same time. It's unbelievable.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
it's also, I think it's made it more fun because I'm just one that I like to get innovative. Like I like to tell people I can do something, and then we hang up the phone and go, oh, shit, how I do it. But then I learn how. Nah, I don't do that anymore. Any prospective clients out there. That's how I've learned to do it. But just when things like this are happening, and you're usually a drop trailer shipper, and the reasoning behind being a drop trailer shipper is not necessarily vital. It's just because of convenience or space or whatever it is. And there's so much opportunity now, right, to come in. I mean, I don't know how many shippers I've had where I've actually recently went and visited them on site and literally changed their shipping process. Like, hey, listen, you got to be open to this, right? This isn't in your manual, all right? I mean, on how to change it. You're going to be paying these rates, but I can do this for you. I can do that for you. And if you do this, hey, listen, I know you want this trailer in there, and I don't play the storage game. I'll tell you right now, you got to stand your ground on it, right? Because a usual drop shipper is now saying, hey, I need a trailer in 2 days before. Well, hang on a second, why? And they'll run you around, right? And then next thing you know, it's not ready because they don't have a strategy. There isn't something in their manual that's saying, hey, this is how you handle it. They're just saying, hey, I need space. I got to get this off the dock. Call Circle, see if we can get a trailer over here. And now we're just got a trailer sitting and it's not ready. So you could do that though, and the value you bring and how much they lean on you. Then after that, the amount of freight you can get, and then even when this all ends, the relationships you make by doing that, it's huge. It's good, great ways to have conversation and good value that you can bring to them.
Yeah, if you're a true service provider right now and coming to your shipper with actual solutions to their problems, that's invaluable.
I've never seen so much vulnerability. I mean, you really, you have conversations with existing and prospective customers, and they're very, they've got kind of not a power trip, I wouldn't say. There's some that do, but they've got that they know they've got the freight and you want it. And now I haven't. I mean, I'm having straight conversations with everybody on we're planning it together. Hey, let's come together and let's think about this. What can we do? What are you seeing out there, TJ? Or what this or that? And I'll name a couple of pain points. They're like, yeah, I'm dying on that. I could say, well, I'm doing this over here. And was it working? I was thinking about doing this. I mean, they're asking me questions, and I'm thinking usually it's they only give you just as much information as they should. And so for me, that's what makes it fun. That's stuff I like doing. And that you could, if that's something you're not into, but something you are able to do, take advantage of that, because you help these people out there, human beings, that by the time this all ends, they're going to say, hey, TJ really helped me through all this. You know what I mean? I'm pruning I'm setting up everybody I can right now, brokers, and yeah, I'm sure sales is easy, but that's why that mindset of, hey, when they start pruning those and they sit down, they reevaluate, you want to be one of those they keep, one of those they go to bat for, because CFOs and CEOs and whatnot, or the VPs of supply chain, he's only looking at rates, saying, hey, Circle's a little bit high. Now you got people who go, hey, listen though, TJ over there, he's the one that helped us do this. He's brought this to it. We could talk to him on rates, but let's keep him on board with, those conversations then happen because the work you put in now.
Yeah, every shipper I ever talked to said the same thing. I can give my freight to anyone. I just want somebody that makes my job easier.
Yep, make their job easier. Absolutely. Come up with something. Figure it out. Have those conversations about it, and you'll be surprised how smart some of them are too. I mean, I talked to one the other day, and we're just getting set. I think one of the reasons I landed the account was because of the conversation I had with her. She kind of came out kind of bitter at first, but she knew what she was talking about. She's like, if carriers would put together, I know something. I'm almost like, she's like, I want to suggest, I know some of our suppliers and stuff that could make a triangle for them, right, for backhauls, and that could help on rates. And I'm like, that's what it's all about right there. I said, I preach that with our dispatch side. You've got to have backhauls are one thing, but like triangles are so much easier because you're not going from, backhauls like almost a mirror image of the markets, but you could, if you're putting a triangle together, you could really push, if you really look at it, like break it down, whether they're smaller ones in the Midwest or larger ones. I mean, an Illinois to Georgia, and then a Georgia to Ohio, and then Ohio to Illinois. I mean, those are all good rates. And so she was just talking like that, and it opened up the conversation, and you were able to have that just because of what you were thinking.
It goes the same way, just like it goes with the shipper and making his job easier. If you could do the same thing for the carrier, you're going to get stickiness on their end. You're going to get them coming back to you. It builds the same relationship on the other side of the transaction like it does to the shipper side. And then you end up like Will shopping for second homes in the Caribbean.
Maybe one day. We'll see.
I like being on the side where I just have somebody making my life easier.
That's why you have friends like TJ,
He makes me he's difficult.
Oh no.
He is difficult.
Hey, here's the deal, Tony. Look at that.
I had to hold the umbrella in the golf.
We were golfing. I was soaking wet. It was raining, so he went over and held the umbrella over me.
What a guy.
Only for the pose.
I muffed it too because my hands were so wet. But Tony, I went and got we just recruited 10 new drivers with day cabs. I got a whole private fleet. So I'm saying, I say we just replace it. Don't worry about hourly pay.
Negative Ghostwriter.
Disagree on
I got my CDL renewed. I'm good to go. I'm just going to jump in and cover the capacity. You haven't had any good analogies today, or if they were early and I missed it. But back in the 80s, I used to haul for Quaker, the oatmeal.
Not the oil.
Did you know that? Did you know the old guy that's on the front of that?
Yeah, a good friend of mine. Goes way back. But man, they treated me like a rock star. I loved it. I was hauling oats.
Oh man.
Got that one for you, TJ.
Hauling Oates first album, Bump the Dock.
That's right.
Wow.
I just passed on the highway this morning on the way to work. Looked like a brand new Lippert components truck, but it wasn't a day cab, Tony. What's going on? It had a sleeper.
Don't know anything about
it. Is it a retrofit box with the sleeper cab up front?
87 Kenworth with a snub nose over the cab over. No, it wasn't. But so, hey, listen, I think the main point that, we take away from this is that, you got to get creative and you got to reach out. I put something out the other day about it, like get resources. I don't care if it's by making connections on, it's helped me so much as the connections I made through LinkedIn and this show, but you've got them right there. Just don't be afraid to talk to people about those things and ask the questions. Drivers, shippers, your carriers. I mean, your warehouse people, friends that are around. Just have a conversation with friends. They give you kind of like some insight in. Like I'll talk to a friend and they'll say something and I'll be, oh, that's interesting. And then I'm gonna drive home like, that fucking makes sense. And you start kind of piecing it together. So, dig in on, online. You can find all different types of resources. You can find ways to learn stuff. But know the different modes. Know where rail capacity is. Ocean, ports, all that stuff. Know what commodities are moving, which ones are shut down for the time being. Look up right now. You can look up an article right now saying what supply chains are struggling. Whether it's shoes, whether it's this or that. Give yourself an idea and start, like what Will said, talking to carriers that usually run that. I always tell people that, like when it comes to new freight that you get, say you run like an RFQ or a new lane or whatever, it's like that's been running for 40 years, right? There's carriers that have been in that lane for 40 years. How do I price it? Literally, I'm not lying to you. My owner told me this: go on Google Maps, right, and go to the shipper and see if you can find names on the sides of the trailers that are there, right? And those are the carriers that have been running it for the last 40 years, right? They don't know which broker it went to. The shipper not telling them. So just get innovative, figure it out. It's there, but you got to find it. So,
agreed.
Closing thoughts, anybody?
I think you nailed it. And that dad joke was over the top, hauling oats.
Yeah, there's nothing I could say that's going to top with that.
I mean, wow. I can't follow up with that. I mean, I like breakfast foods, but I got muffin.
Oh, wow.
See,
I'm out. I'll see you.
All right,
guys. Thank you.
Take it easy, guys.
Put me on, guys. Good seeing you.